Okay, Israeli citizen. In fact, the estimates now, the last time I checked last night, the estimates now that Israel has 90 nuclear warheads. 90, not one. 90 nuclear bombs. The last time I checked, yesterday, 90. Iran has none. Now, if you're looking for an irresponsible state in the Middle East, is it Iran or is it Israel? The record of Israel is there for everybody. The United Nations, not me, not Iran, not Palestine. The United Nations has declared Israel as an apartheid state.
Abusafo yemo bibia kwa ba na yemfa mbra Mega TV platform we eso. Uncle Kwesi Pratt Junior Eddie Abufo. In fact, asende warning bi Eddie ama Israeli ambassador a wukurumba na wobeka ye nche enura wi Eddie nse bi betu dwa a wo kiremu sede Ewura Mahama eni ni NDC ba mumbu Ghana ensi emfa ni na eye Iran eni Israel ehu entokoyi abusia utie de ekoso na amse abrofo we no omumfa abibifo anyehwe, and it has been there for a decade. It has been there since creation. Yes, abrofo no mfa nipa anyehwe, but Uncle Kwesi Pratt omumfa abibifo anyehwe. Uncle Kwesi Pratt send the message be across. Mempese mekasa ho bebre yenko ne yenkutie Uncle Kwesi Pratt Junior nsema oditu edwa abufu ana ahye na kumama anyhow osi express ne ho ewo Alhaji and Alhaji show Pan African television. So yemfa credit na emfa mom mesro se odo comment betum na wa like dwumaje na wa share na foforo anyibia hwe hanom your number one authentic platform Mega TV. You go so A7 with the best of news. Abusan for yenkuti nse ne mo nkire mo na ekoba bidina kai na ebeto aso ewo yen platform. Yesu yakopon koso a enhira obibia.
First and foremost, I think it's important for us to appreciate that the world is at a very, very dangerous place. The estimate is that 9 countries in the world have acquired the power to destroy this world, this earth, 10 times over. Now, to destroy the world once is an unimaginable catastrophe. But to destroy it 10 times over, I don't know how to describe it. So for all who want the preservation of our civilization, for all who want the preservation of life and so on, our duty is to strive for peace. And in striving for peace, we have a commitment to ensure that not just the proliferation of nuclear weapons, but the production of nuclear weapons everywhere is stopped. That's the commitment that we need to have. Now, having said this, I think it's important to remind Donald Trump and his friends and so on that we are no longer in 1452, when the Pope sat in Rome and signed a law authorizing King Alfonso of Portugal to invade the world and to convert all of us to Christianity. And that those who failed or refused to be converted should be killed, their wives seized, and their properties, taken from them and so on. We are not in that era. We are not in 1884, when Otto von Bismarck invited his fellow European leaders and they sat in Bonn, put the map of Africa on the table, used pencils and drew lines to create their spheres of influence. We've passed that stage. We have actually passed the stage where the King of Belgium could claim the whole of the Congo as his personal property. We've passed that stage. And we've certainly passed 1948. When Lord Balfour cut Palestine into two and gave part of Palestine for the establishment of the state of Israel. Now I think it's instructive for us to go back into history. You see, when the Second World War ended and the Western countries, out of their own desire, to make good what they had done to the Jews and so on, decided to create the state of Israel, a number of places were considered for the establishment of the state of Israel. One of those places is modern-day Uganda. Modern-day Uganda was considered as a place for the establishment of the state of Israel. Argentina was also considered for the establishment of the state of Israel. And then eventually, they decided, because the British had mandate over Palestine, to give part of Palestine for the establishment of the state of Israel. Now, this history must not be lost on us. It's a very important history. This is the history that belies the claim that Palestine is land which was bequeathed to the Zionists by God. What about Uganda? What about Argentina and so on? This history is a history that we ought to remember. Now, what we are discussing today is not just the attack on Iran by an apartheid occupationist force. That's what we are discussing. We are discussing the whole architecture of West Asia and the Middle East. We are discussing the right of a people to govern themselves without interference. And we are discussing the equality of nations, the principles which underline the equality of nations and so on. For anybody to glorify Israel at this time must amount not just to total recklessness, but complete disregard for the values of humanity. Listen, as we speak now, 70,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of whom are women and children, have been slaughtered in cold blood in Gaza. Don't lose sight of that fact. 70,000 Palestinians, 2/3 of them, women and children, have been slaughtered in Gaza. Last night, I was watching television. I was watching CNN. I wasn't watching Al Jazeera. I was watching CNN. What is happening? The Israelis have taken over the distribution of relief items and so on to these Palestinians who have been displaced, whose homes have been bombed, whose schools have been destroyed, and so on. So they've created centers for the distribution of aid. And then when information goes out that there is food at these centers, and the Palestinians start trooping to the centers to go and take food and water, they open fire on them. Who can justify this? Innocent and armed Palestinians rushing for food and water, they open fire on them and kill them. And sometimes 70 people a day, sometimes 100 people a day, and so on. Who can justify this? Now, that is not all. I want to just a few examples. You see, Palestinians who lost their homes, who were victims of the Nakba, and so 1948, and so who are refugees in other countries have no right of return to their homeland. Palestinians, they have no right of return to their homeland. But anybody anywhere in the world, in Ghana, in Afghanistan, in Togo, anywhere, who claims to be a Jew has automatic right of return to Palestine. Does that make sense to you? That Palestinians who are exiled as a result of Nakba and so on are not allowed to return to their homeland. But anybody anywhere in the world can be a national of Germany, can be a national of Czechoslovakia, anywhere, who claims to be a Jew has automatic right of return. Does that make sense? Now we are talking about the possibility, and here we are talking about the possibility of Iran making a nuclear bomb, producing a nuclear bomb. Possibility. Because even the Israeli Prime Minister himself says that Iran is only a few months, sometimes it's a few weeks away from producing a bomb. That's what he says. That's the allegation. Okay. Now, be that as it may, Iran has signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iran's nuclear facilities are subject to inspection by the International Atomic Energy Agency. They are inspecting Iran's, nuclear facility and so on. They are inspecting it on a constant basis. They issue reports on a regular basis and so on. They haven't produced a nuclear weapon yet. Israel admits that they haven't produced a nuclear weapon yet. Israel has produced a nuclear weapon, has not signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And if you remember, in the late 1960s or 1970s, an Israeli who was working on the nuclear facility actually disclosed to the world what Israel was doing. You remember? You will remember. He was arrested, imprisoned, put in solitary confinement, and so on. After so many years, he was released. The first time he granted an interview, he was locked back in. This is an Israeli citizen. Okay? Israeli citizen. In fact, the estimates now, the last time I checked last night, the estimates now, that Israel has 90 nuclear warheads. 90, not one. 90 nuclear bombs. The last time I checked, yesterday, 90. Iran has none. Now, if you are looking for an irresponsible state in the Middle East, is it Iran or is it Israel? The record of Israel is there for everybody. The United Nations, not me, not Iran, not Palestine. The United Nations has declared Israel as an apartheid state. Apartheid state. What does that mean? Simply put, it means that Israel has separate laws which govern the life of Israelis and separate laws which govern the lives of Arabs, even Israeli Arabs. You understand? It is an apartheid state. It's a racist state. Now, it is significant, and again, I checked yesterday, and you can Google now, that 70% of Israeli citizens are opposed to the war in Gaza. 70%. 70% of Israeli citizens are opposed to the war. Okay? So, for those of you who like to talk about democracy and how Israel is a democratic state and so on, when 70% of the population is opposed to the war in Gaza, and the government is doing what it's doing against the will of the people, how is that democratic? How is that a democratic state? I cannot understand. Now, statements made by Israeli officials themselves are very clear on this matter. You know, the Israeli Minister of Defense, 2 days ago, granted an interview in which he said that the spiritual leader of Iran has lost his right to exist. I'm sure you are all familiar with that. That he has no right to exist. Which in other words means that he must be assassinated. Okay. The Israeli Prime Minister was asked on Israeli national television his reaction to what his defense minister has said. The Israeli Prime Minister's response was that nobody, no Iranian, must be granted immunity from death. Benjamin Netanyahu, he says no Iranian must be granted immunity from death. I mean, if this is not a declaration of genocidal intent, what else can be a declaration of genocidal intent? That 90 million people should be wiped out. This is Benjamin Netanyahu's own words and so on. Now, for me, one of the other most interesting things is simply the fact that the Iranian nuclear program was started by the United States of America. The technology, the equipment, everything was provided by the United States of America when the Shah was in charge. Okay? So America's objection to Iran producing nuclear power and so on is not because there's any problem with the production of nuclear power, but who is in charge. They don't like who is in charge. If the Shah were there, America would have had no problem because America started that project. Okay? Now, I have had the privilege of visiting Iran many times. You understand? And I'm quite sure that my brother here, the Honorable Member of Parliament, perhaps has not visited Iran. I mean, I can say on authority that I know most parts of Iran like the back of my hand. And his description of the situation in Iran is a far cry from the reality in Iran. You see, Western analysts and so on make a lot of noise about the discrimination of women in Iran. Now, when they talk about the discrimination of women in Iran, what are they talking about? They are saying that Iranian women are not free to walk about without veils. If I lie, tell me. That's the main argument that they make. Now, anybody who has been to Iran or anybody who has encountered Iranian women would know, unlike other places in the Middle East and West Asia and so on, Iranian women wear their scarves halfway. You know, the scarf starts from somewhere here and goes back and so on. So their front is normally revealed. It is very rare to find Iranian women who are fully covered. But me, that's not even the issue. You understand? The issue is this. Today in Iran, more women graduate from the universities than men. How many countries in the world have more women graduating from the universities than men? Is that not also about human rights? Who has access to education and so on? Is that not a human rights issue and so on? Not just that. The first woman ever to win the Nobel Prize for mathematics was who? An Iranian woman. Okay? So you counterbalance that with the condition of women in the United States of America and the condition of women in France and the condition of women in Britain. And if you're a Ghanaian woman, which one would you accept? That you are free to leave your hair and you are denied access to education? That you are free to leave your hair and you are denied access to employment? You are free to leave your hair uncovered and is discriminated against when it comes to appointment and so on. So you weigh the two. I would prefer a situation where women enjoy all the rights that women ought to enjoy. But those who criticize Iran for discrimination against women have no such right, because the condition of women in their countries are far worse than the condition of women in Iran. And I think that this point must be amplified very, very clearly. Now, there's something which just beats me completely. Israel claims that it has launched this war to destroy Iran's capacity for producing a nuclear bomb. That's the claim. Not so. So Israel launches the war, and the second day after launching the war, admits that it has no capacity. Israel admits that it has no capacity to destroy Iran's nuclear facility. And that the only country which can destroy Iran's nuclear facility is the United States of America. And then he starts appealing to the US to join them. Wow. Massa, they themselves are claiming that they launched the war to stop Iran from developing the capacity. They have launched the war finish, so they launched the war finish. Then they turn and say, we don't have that capacity. If America doesn't come to our aid, we will not be able to achieve that objective. What does that tell you? Massa, what does that tell you? What that tells you simply is that this is a reckless adventure. Complete reckless adventure. Okay? Now, if you watch the United States under Trump is using Israel, Israel's attack on Iran, as a bargaining chip. Israel go and attack them, weaken them, so that they will come to the negotiation table. That's all. What does the US want from the negotiating table? That is even confused. First, the United States of America and its Western allies sat down with Iran and negotiated the JCPOA. You understand? They negotiated it. All of them, with their nuclear experts, the international relations experts and so on, sat with Iran and agreed that this agreement, we believe, will not make it possible for you to develop nuclear weapons and to use it recklessly and so on. They all agreed. They signed the agreement, the JCPOA agreement, they signed. When they finished, and Donald Trump became president, Donald Trump alone then decided that the agreement should be cancelled. The Western countries were not happy with Donald Trump because they believed that that was the best frame which could be created and so on. So between the United States and the Western countries, there was a gulf. Okay? Then Joe Biden came to power and so on, and somehow he didn't have the nerve to reverse the Donald Trump situation, and it persisted and so on. And then Donald Trump came back to power. Donald Trump comes to power and says, we still want to negotiate. The Iranians said, no problem, let's negotiate. They started negotiations. They have had 4 rounds of negotiations. Israel attacked on Friday or Saturday. The next round of negotiations was to take place on Sunday to seal the deal. They have been talking about what to do, the framework to have for Iran's development of nuclear energy and so on. One day more to the conclusion of the talks, Israel attacks. Who can justify this? who in his right mind or her right mind can justify this attack 1 day before the negotiations are concluded. So clearly this attack was intended to destroy the possibility of an agreement. Clearly intended to destroy the possibility of an agreement. Now, let's look around the world and so on. Let's look around the world and see, you know. You see, those who are criticizing Iran, those who think that Iran is a power state and so on, they must look at themselves first. My brother, listen, these countries which are lining up behind Israel, these are the same countries who went into the Congo, staged a coup d'etat, arrested the democratically elected president of the Congo, Patrice Lumumba, killed him, and 2 weeks ago, the intelligence officer who led that operation confessed that he cut Patrice Lumumba's body into 34 parts, removed his front teeth as a souvenir, and dissolved his body. The body of the democratically elected prime minister of the Congo was dissolved in acid. What moral authority can they have? What moral authority can they have? Huh? These countries which are lining up behind, Israel, the United States of America. The United States of America is the only country in the world which has used a nuclear bomb. It used it twice, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. The people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki continue to suffer the consequences of that recklessness. Has Iran ever used a nuclear bomb? Or even just an ordinary dirty bomb? The US has used it twice in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Where is the moral authority of the US today to be pontificating to us and so on? Where is the moral authority? You see, and for those of you who think that this is a religious conflict, okay, and that because you are Christian, you must necessarily support Israel, please read the Bible again and check your facts. First of all, if you see all the videos of the protests in the United States against the genocide that Israel is committing in Gaza, you find Jewish rabbis in the forefront of the anti-Israel demonstrations. And my brother, that is where I come to you. You claim that this gentleman sitting here, by religion, is a Muslim, is a Shia Muslim, and therefore should not have been on the program. Should have brought a Jew. The majority of Jews are opposed to the genocide that Israel is committing. The majority of Jews are leading demonstrations in Western Europe and in the United States of America against what the Zionist regime is doing. So there's no guarantee that if you bring a Jew here, he will say anything different from what any one of us is saying. There's no such guarantee. And to believe that the mere presence of a Jew on this panel will change things is to misunderstand the situation in Israel. Okay? So first of all, you have 70% of the Israeli population opposed to war with Palestine. You have the vast majority of Jews in the world opposed to the genocide that Israel is committing, and so on. Now, let us be clear. Let us be clear. Any study of African history and African struggle for liberation and freedom will reveal that Israel has been against us from the very beginning until now. The Israeli intelligence agency was a collaborator of the apartheid intelligence agency in South Africa. In fact, the arrest of Nelson Mandela was coordinated between apartheid intelligence, the US intelligence, and Israeli intelligence. No doubt at all about that. 3 days ago, videos came out of Israelis running into the bomb shelters, and I'm sure that perhaps all of you have seen those videos. Black people who live in Israel, who were also running into the shelters to protect their lives, were prevented from entering the shelters. They were prevented from entering the shelters. So if you're an African, and you want to support what is happening in Israel, something must be wrong with you. 20 years ago, a story emerged of a gentleman, a child actually from Ethiopia, a Falan, what they call them, who had died in Israel. And they could not find a burial place for him because he was black. Jew, he was a Jew, but he was black. They couldn't find a burial place for him because he was from Ethiopia. This is a big story which broke, made the headlines all over the world. So if you're an African and you support this carnage, something must be wrong with you. If you're an African and you support this carnage, something must be wrong with you. Even burial grounds are denied to the African people. Now listen, and Honorable, I heard you say, for example, that as for us, we are living in peace. After this program, we walk down and walk to our cars and so on. Honorable, you completely misunderstand the world situation. You completely misunderstand it. As a result of what is happening, this aggression that Israel is waging against Iran, our government has decided to suspend the implementation of the levy imposed on fuel, which have enabled us to retire $4 billion worth of debt in the power sector. Do you know the implications of that? The implications of that is that this country may at a later time not be able to produce electricity. That means the collapse of our industries, the collapse of our educational institutions, the collapse of our hospitals and everything. So what is happening may appear to be between Israel and Iran, but has devastating consequences on us. And in any case, the nuclear scientists tell us that if they manage to find the right weaponry and attack the nuclear facility at Fudan, the environmental consequences would affect everybody in the world. Every nation in the world will suffer. So it is not true that we are insulated from what is happening there. The consequences would affect us. And that is why it is important for us to speak loudly and clearly that this nonsense must stop. That no nation is superior. That the sovereignty of one nation is not inferior to the sovereignty of another nation, and so on. We must insist upon that. Now you see, people talk about the right of Israel to exist and so on. Now when you're talking about the right of Israel, what geographical dimension are you talking about? Which country is Israel? Israel is the only country in the world which has no fixed borders. You want to challenge that? The only country in the world which has no fixed borders. Every day, every week, every month, every year, it keeps expanding its borders. You understand? So when you are talking about the state of Israel, what is that geographic entity you are referring to? Because as we speak, the Israelis have a plan to annex part of Gaza and add to their territory. As we speak. And this whole thing that is happening in Ghana is about the annexation of more land. Clear, they've said that clearly, they want more land to expand the state of Israel. You understand? Is this something which we should accept? Look, Israel has killed more journalists than have been killed in any war in history. That's also a fact. That's a fact. They've killed more journalists than have been killed in any war in history. They deliberately attack journalists and kill them. And the impunity. And they do it, they don't even hide. They do it so openly and so on. You see, for those of you who support this Zionist regime and so on, I mean, I can't help but pity you. Last week, did you read the statement which was made by the Israeli ambassador in Ghana? How did you feel when you read that statement? Has no respect for our government. Honorable, he has no respect for your government. He has no respect for your president. The Israeli ambassador to Ghana actually calls the press and tells the press that he's disappointed in the government of Ghana. He's disappointed in the government of Ghana. What is the basis of his disappointment? One, that our government pursues a non-aligned policy. And as far as the Israeli ambassador is concerned, Ghana should not be a non-aligned state. And that Ghana should defy the non-aligned movement. What effrontery. He doesn't end there. This Israeli ambassador says that he knows that Ghana belongs to the African Union. But we should not listen to the African Union. We should break ranks to the African Union. What impunity? What arrogance? And then he goes on and says we should have nothing to do with the Arab League and so on. This nothing Israeli ambassador in Accra wants to dictate to President Mahama how he should run his foreign policy, how he should run his government. He feels emboldened. He's so big, he's bigger than Mahama, he's bigger than the NDC, he's bigger than our parliament and so on. And you want to support this? Unbelievable. And this arrogance finds expression in everything they do. This belief that they are specially chosen by God is the fundamental thing when it comes to Israeli policy. In any case, Sana, let me say something. Sana, look, the Israelis, not all the Israelis, I mean the Zionists who are in power in Israel, have constantly been insulting God. Take it from me, they have constantly been insulting God. They claim that God created all of us, and after creating all of us, decided to select this small number of Zionists in Israel as his chosen people against the rest of us. Don't you think that that's an insult to God? I mean, what kind of a God will create the world and all its people, including Filipinos, including Argentines, including Brazilians, including Arabs, including Zulus, and so on, Fantis and Ashantis, and so on. And after creating this beautiful mosaic of people and so on, decide that I will support only a small number of them, less than 10 million of them. They are the people I will support against the rest. What kind of God is that? That God must be very partial. That God must be very unfair. So if you believe in this theory of the chosen people, that is how you think. If you believe in this theory of the chosen people, you are insulting God. You think that God is partial, God is not fair, and so on. Think about it. In any case, all those of you who every now and then want to go to Israel for religious pilgrimage and so on, Senna, Do you know the birthplace of Jesus, where Jesus was actually born? Do you know that it is not in the modern day Israel? It's in Palestine. So Jesus was Palestinian. Jesus the Christ was Palestinian. He was not an Israeli, he was Palestinian. You understand? Not just that. The Church of Nativity, that is the church which was built on the manger where Jesus was born. It's in Palestine. Do you know something? Pope Francis, before he died, the Pope who recently died, was on telephone call on a daily basis with Gaza. Go and check. Expressing his solidarity with Gaza and so on. Why? There are more Christians in Palestine than there are in Israel. More Palestinians are Christian than Israelis are. This is a fact. You understand? And indeed, there are a lot more Muslims who are citizens of Israel. So this whole confusion and so on, where is it coming from? It comes from ignorance. Ignorance of the facts. Ignorance of religion. Those who read the Bible upside down, they read the Bible upside down and come to all kinds of unrealistic conclusions and so on. But you see, now we don't have all day. We don't have all day. So let me say that war has consequences. And one of the consequences of war is untold suffering, usually for the vulnerable, not the powerful people, not the people in power. You understand? One of war's consequences is suffering of the vulnerable people in our societies and so on. So, to the extent that it is possible, we must do everything possible to avert war. This particular war has been said by the Secretary General of the United Nations, has been said by all the prominent leaders of the world, can lead to a thermonuclear third world war, whose consequences will be felt by everybody in the world. This particular reckless war that Israel has started can lead to a thermonuclear third world war. This war has already started affecting our pockets and our well-being and so on. We must do everything possible to bring this war to an end as quickly as possible. And the way to do that is to call a spade a spade. The way to do that is to organize massive solidarity with the victims of this aggression. The way to do that is to end Israeli aggression everywhere. The way to do that is to struggle for the restoration of the rights of the Palestinian people. The way to do that is to support the two-state solution that the whole world, including the United Nations, agrees is the way forward. Now listen, why? Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin sat down and to the displeasure of many people and so on, signed the Oslo Accord, which guaranteed the establishment of an independent state of Israel with security guarantees, alongside the establishment of an independent state of Palestine with security guarantees and so on. The solution to the problem was found by Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister of Israel. What happened after that? People like Benjamin Netanyahu and hawks in Israel killed Yitzhak Rabin. They killed Yitzhak Rabin to destroy that agreement, which would have saved the situation. We are here because Israeli hawks killed Yitzhak Rabin because they didn't want a two-state solution. Recently, Benjamin Netanyahu said that the two-state solution would never happen. It would be over his dead body and so on. They killed Yitzhak Rabin. They killed their own prime minister because he was voting for peace and so on. Now, if they can kill their own prime minister because he was looking for peace, who can they not kill? Let us be realistic. This war must come to an end as quickly as possible. And the way to bring this war to an end is to stop the aggressor. And the aggressor in this case is the Zionist state of Israel. Nobody else.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll do a few comments and then we'll have to move on to the next topic because, like I said, we do not actually have time. But I just have to do a few comments. This is Honorable Bolo, who's assembly member for Battle. Says Israel should stop being dogmatic. War with Iran should not be an option. For the USA, they're already thinking of aggravating the situation. We need peace. Then there's this one which is from NS Evalov Kwashi, who says, in a region plagued by conflict and complex histories, the leaders of Israel have often chosen war drums over wisdom and showmanship over statesmanship. At the heart of it lies a chronic case of misplaced priorities. Instead of channeling national strength into diplomacy, development, and coexistence, the state has been consumed with aggressive expansionism, military dominance, and political theatrics that satisfy the egos of a few while dragging millions into endless tension and antagonism. That is NS Evalov Kwashi. There's Dr. Akofa Segbefia, who says, you recall that America attacked Iraq even after the intelligence community was emphatic that Iraq had no weapons of mass destruction. Today, the IAEA says there's no evidence of Iran having nuclear weapons, yet Iran has come under attack. Remember, Mordecai Vanunu, an Israeli scientist, revealed that Israel has nuclear weapons. Now, I am convinced beyond every reasonable doubt that Israel's enterprise in Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen, and Iran is only for the political survival of one man, Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu's intelligence is unfathomable. That's coming from him. There's also Tafa in Amrahia, who says, good morning. He said, I want to use this, your important platform, to condemn the act of barbarism, killing of innocent women and children of Islam, Republic of Iran. I'm also condemning those Arab countries who grant their airspace for the Zionists to use and troop their bombs on innocent women and children. Americans pretend they are not involved, but we are not fools. They should tell that to their Marines. Thank you, Tafa, who sent that message. Musa Abatwa is also joining us. So let's call a spade and not a big spoon. Uncle Kwesi is absolutely right. The chaos, bloodshed, and destruction we are witnessing in the Israel-Iran conflict is deeply rooted in American interests and double standard. It's disturbing how some nations are given a green light to possess nuclear weapons while others are warned, sanctioned, or even threatened for the same. The same bandwagon propaganda strategy America used to justify the invasion of Iraq is now being redeployed against Iran. We must speak truth to power and resist the hypocrisy that continues to destabilize regions. Thank you. And this is Seidu, who is also joining us. Mr. Netanyahu has long wanted to fight. Quote, this is a quote from former President Bill Clinton. He says, quote, Mr. Netanyahu has long wanted to fight Iran because that way he can stay in office forever and ever. But I think we should be trying to diffuse it. And I hope President Trump will do that. I hope anybody there will do that. We got to convince our friends in the Middle East that we'll stand with them and try to protect them. But choosing undeclared wars in which the primary victims are civilians who are not politically involved, one way or the other, just want to live decent life is not a very good solution. Do I think that we have to try to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon? I do. I tried at that and we had some success, but we don't have to have all this outright constant killing of civilians who can't defend themselves and they just want a chance to live. That's a quote that I sent from me, and it says population makeup of Israel: Jews 73.2%, Muslim 18%, Christian 1.9%. Well, thank you. And I'm concluding with the thoughts of Davis, and I says, Mr. Pratt's contribution has been very insightful. Thanks to him. Let the world know that no one's blood is purer than the other person's. We want peace in the world. If you just join us, we're having a discussion on the Israel-Iran conflict that's still ongoing. Well, there are attempts to try to find a solution to the problem. The challenge is the U.S. The challenge will continue to be the U.S. because Donald Trump is president. Well, let's move on to another discussion and come to Ghana about the new patriotic party. We've been discussing them for some time. The latest is the decision to hold primaries on January 31, 2026, even before they go and do the elections of the police station executive, constituency executive, regional executives, and national executives. So the current executives will choose a flag bearer for the party, then go for elections. Well, I'll start from my immediate left with Honorable Togo. Honorable.
Thank you very much, Senator. I think that as we get into local politics, I'm happy that me and my big brother Kwesi Pratt has finally landed on a single point. There must be peace. And whatever it is, insecurity anywhere in the world is a threat to the peace and security everywhere. That I agree with him. Bro, when we talk about Ghana's politics, since the return of this country to democratic rule in 1992, after we promulgated the 1992 Constitution, the two key parties that emerged and has remained so to date is the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party. They presented their first presidential candidate, that was Professor Albert Aduboahene, and he lost woefully. They never repeated him, and they brought in President Kufuor, who was actually third on the list when Albert Aduboahene was the presidential candidate. In that contest, he placed third. Gianni Selvi was second. Coming around, President Kufuor won the election on his second attempt. They brought the third candidate, President Nana Dankwa-Akufo-Addo, who just left. He won the presidency on his third attempt. So if you look at the trend, what it means is that their next presidential candidate, who happens to be Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia in the last elections, that they want to repeat, if they want to go by that trend, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia can win Ghana's election in his fourth attempt. And the truth is, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was placed as a card to be played to satisfy a particular philosophy that they are pushing, that their party is a national party. It was of late that they added the Dombo to the Buzia Dampa. And in trying to sanitize the situation, they said, oh, the Buzia people had won before, the Danko people have won before. It's now left with the Dombo. So let's make him presidential candidate, so that we can have the history right that, listen, even somebody from the Dombo side ever led the party. But they knew in their heart that the mess that they created for 8 years, the horror movie that Ghanaians were compelled to watch for 8 years, there was no way, irrespective of who was the presidential candidate of the MPP, that they could win elections. And because of that clarity, they placed Bawumia under the train, and he went by it. Today, what they are simply doing is that they are very clear in their minds that after 2028, with what President Mahama has started doing, and the fact that my brother Dr. Ayini is on course with oral, 2028 is nothing to dream about for them. So let's repeat him, so that it will be convincing to the Ghanaian people that after a Northerner in the MPP, you cannot lead the MPP to power. So that at the end of the day, he will be taken off forever, and they'll look for a new candidate, justifiably so. So for me, what they are doing is to ensure that the establishment candidate for 2024 is repeated. Excuse me, who elects a presidential candidate? We start from the grassroots, go from the branches to the constituency, to the region, to national, and at the end of the day, the last point is to elect a presidential candidate. From all these changes, who were those who elected Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia for the last elections? They are the ones who are still there. So it means that if they want to repeat the election without any change from the grassroots, they are likely to get the same result, that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia will lead. So let's jump the gun and use the same people to confirm Bawumia as the presidential candidate for 2028 before we start to begin to change from the grassroots. I have never seen a human being working with their head. And I'm surprised that JFK will lead the party as a general secretary and will proffer this kind of solution to restructure a very corrupt party, the MPP. What they have done in 8 years, the level of corruption that we've witnessed, the level of impunity that we've witnessed, the level of arrogance that we've seen in 8 years, the disregard and disrespect for the Ghanaian people who voted for them. I am wondering, instead of them to begin to restructure the party from the base, they are thinking of maintaining the status quo and ensuring that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia will continue to lead them. I don't have a problem. If he leads, it makes the work easier for us. But for us as the NDC, what we just need to do is ensure that President John Dramani Mahama succeeds. And whoever becomes the candidate, the name will not matter. Where the person comes from will not matter. What will matter is that the track record of the party in government and the track record of President John Dramani Mahama will carry the NDC into the next election and will be victorious. What the MPP is doing, honestly speaking, we've done politics for some time. Whether it's at the student level, at the national level, or it's even the theory. I don't know which book is guiding them. Even if it's a political theory, I don't know which book they're reading to guide them. That what they intend to do is by 31st of January 2026, they will have presidential primaries. Because they just want to be sure that my good brother and former chairman of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament, that's the 8th Parliament, Honorable Kennedy Japan, will stop worrying them. So they want a leader now, so that everybody will go silent and they will see if they can use that leader to rebuild the party in the next 3 years to be able to contest elections. But the truth is that if they take their time to rebuild the party from scratch and agree that they've messed up this country for 8 years and agree that Ghanaians are very angry with them. Now agree that Ghanaians are not thinking about voting for the MPP probably in the next 20 years at least. And what you need to do is convince Ghanaians and tell them you are sorry. We are sorry for what we've taken you through in 8 years. We are sorry for all the things that Ghana has gone through in 8 years. We are sorry for the haircuts. We are very, very sorry for the high inflation rate. In fact, we are very sorry for the pain that you've gone through with all these hikes in fuel prices. And we are sorry for deceiving you. That we presented a candidate saying that this was incorruptible. That at his age, he doesn't need money for anything. He was going to protect the public purse. We are very sorry that we presented a different picture. And actually what we acted in contrast with what we presented to you. Forgive us. And after the forgiveness stage, you begin to see if you can rebuild your party. And if you rebuild the party and rebrand it, and probably in the near future, in the next 20 years, you can present the candidate and Ghanaians will say probably the NDC has also stayed in power for too long. Because when you're in power for too long, sometimes it attracts a bit of arrogance. But of course, what they are doing is their party. I don't attend NEC meetings with them. I'm not their party person. But I have friends in there. You speak to many of the MPs and they'll tell you, listen, we don't actually know what is going on. But the truth is that as for 2028, it's survival of the fittest. People want to stay in parliament for the future. They are not thinking about the presidential candidate. And they are not thinking about winning elections. Because before we finish with oral, you know, the secret is that if they're able to get a presidential candidate in 2026, they will bring a lot of pressure to bear on government, such that attention will shift away from oral. But if we are able to recover a lot of stolen funds, and we are able to prosecute and succeed in getting people into prison, and let the law work, let the law be that supreme as we believe it to be, I am very convinced that it doesn't matter the speed they want to take to come back to power. They can only crash. Because with that kind of speed, with that accuracy, you can only crash. How can you come back to power so soon? How do you look into the face of Ghanaians and think that, oh, just yesterday we left, but we want to come back? Come and do what? For 8 good years you had Ghana in your hands. And what you've left for us as a legacy, the pain in our heart, the anger that is still in our hearts, you are not even coming apologizing. You are walking in our face, trying to bring a new presidential candidate with speed, so that you think about the presidency. Maybe it's not about Ghana. If it's about Ghana, they will have to re-strategize. I'm not getting the strategy very clear. But the only thing I know is that they want to get a leader in time. Because their party is now leaderless. And in that leaderless position, my good friend, the minority leader, Honorable Afenyo Markins, he's carrying so much weight. Yesterday I met him in the chamber. I said, bro, I love your tenacity. I love your energy. But I'm so sad that you don't have direction. He looked at me and said, we are where you are now. One day you will be where I am. And we smiled and I walked away. The truth is that Honorable Antonio Markins is now providing leadership. And they want a leader at the party level. They say, this is our presidential candidate. And the person they're pushing for, it's so easy for the NDC to go and smile and say, we will do the best that we can. But we are going to win the next election not by campaigning. We are going to win the next election by showing results. By telling the Ghanaian people what we've done in 4 years. And telling them that we promised and we delivered. And telling them that the 2024 manifesto, we are giving you a better Ghana. Okay. The Ghana that you deserve. We have done the best that we can. Do the comparison. And you'll see that the National Democratic Congress remains the only viable political party in this country that can move this country from grace to grace and from point to point. And we are moving forward towards the desired state. We are moving the Ghanaian people to where we ought to be, not necessarily where we want to be. And under President John Dramani Mahama, I believe that the reset is on and we are on course.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable Member of Parliament for Wa West. Let me...
Yes, in the same way, Uncle Kwesi Pratt Junior so auditu edwa. Etuti nsema Uncle Kwesi Pratt kana na chese. Eyeni ya pa se Israeli president, ambassador. Behave sir. And me, enyem because abrofuna nkasa ebu before se sebi yejimi. And sabrofun bebu before se yejimi a ye before ye na yema sa kwan no. Because first bibini enya kwan eben broni a ade a hoka eni se ni nua bibini eye nipa bone. O se ni nua bibini e di kire broni. Na broni so to na adwem se o samum ende nua bibini so nipa bone ni dia. Eno de na chese won so ade me fire nko won so bibini into definitely ube nipa bone. No enti broni bia hye bibini a o very careful because of yesu ban de before you, because of your knee, because of a nema how I see ye nema sifa. Enti bibini bia ekusia bruni no ehu say no bibini no enyi ni papa enti so ye bibia na I was saying very careful. Enu na didi abrofo ni tirimu enu na ama abrofo no sabre so muni abibifo hia na akoye se omune sebi embo bi na ehia na mum enye omuyonku nipa enti ohwe niema de ekoso a very sad last time na tise akujita black akra foreign affairs minister Lame Israeli ambassador onene eno baba ebini na ye nsema na Kwesi Pratt kan ehun nsem enam so a onene sa no baba ye no eti na what at all is going on ye tie manmu a yenim se sovereign country enti no ubana ube detective maye upeso chere de enya. It doesn't make sense. And secondly, because of say before yan to ye name ye na always be and we depend on abrofo. They have no tiny of respect for us. Omuni ebu bia de maye. Omuni ebu just ebu bia de maye. Yankasa ye digie yankasa grieve. For example, economy se economy ni mu yadia abrofo no etimi mai sika abrofo no timi twa sika na omodi ayeden omodi amaye but sika no beka ensa enka bibini edbeya de papa na next time broni ni ba wo hu na waka se sika na mede ma no we na odi ye no obo se na ko bibini one na busafo ache edi na de wese na omoye se bia broni ba obetime nya ase papa bia aka de akere no wanye broni be hu sade we ya. It is an insult to him and no unrespectful that onye den unrespectful that he is not going to respect you enti ya ka hu bi ɛna yɛma aborɔfo no fa yɛ la. Yɛayɛ ka ho bi ɛna yɛma aborɔfo no ɔmo mbuɛ. Yɛayɛ ka ho bi ɛna aborɔfo no mfa yɛnyɛ hwee wɔ kurom ha. Ɔmo hu yɛ koraa na ɔmo dwen sɛ they have seen another creature. They don't consider us to be, humans. They see themselves more human than we the Africans, and it is true. Yesuban yetibia ye niye ene hawa yesiseye ye ho ankasa edi kira abrofo no. Ito mu hu ya omu nhyeda ndwen se omu hye nipa bia. Iti enye mwa se Israeli ambassador no oye den o behave in this manner. Enye mwa se ene Donald Trump abandoned some African countries so omu ensi di kurum. What in the picture na say? What in the picture na say? Bibia me say he ye nhwe ye Ghana asoman no. Ye bompaye, ye nimdie ba ye bompaye. Ebedu baby no that all the powerful countries are quite midi. Yɛkɔ at least ɛnyɛ adwuma yɛ ɔmo de yɛyɛ nkutu dwuma na yɛnyi sika bɛsi dan yɛbɛsi abusuafie na sɛbi yɛde ama yɛn ho na yɛso yɛdi yie wɔ abrabɔ mu no saa kuro no nyinaa saa aman no nyinaa yɛnhwɛ yɛ a ɔmo bɛban ne yɛfiri hɔnom. They will put very restricted ban and as a very strict what do you call it, laws a wobɛkɔ hɔnom a ɛbɛyɛ dendenden emu bɛyɛ te sɛ tae a yɛakyekyere a yɛase atwim no ebu nso mu ɛden ɔte na mɛhyɛ ɔno ase. Nti yɛanhwɛ so andevelop yɛ man na de biara yɛdwen sɛ yɛkɔ the western world akɔ akɔdi yie na yɛde sika no bi abɛwura yɛ economy mu a masa yɛbrɛ gu kwa of which sɛ bibi korɔ no a yɛkɔ a yɛnya no wɔ hɔ no we have so many what do you call it, amenities in Ukruma, Missy amenities, so many resources in Ukruma, gold, diamond, manganese, bauxite, cocoa, timber, everything in this country. I am so bit we develop your mind. We have it in this country. It's the city and I idea your cotton honum there, Omodia include to money, Yesica, the Sulala, Media Babe, ye my Yanasi, and so baby Sisia dying. Kuroma we politicians in ha omo sisi adan fefe omo aye japade ina eya kwantufo ahwo western part omo abrochire we politicians in ha even politicians ya me ko mo asem bebre ekọ abrochire no mo koyeye na mo ba mo de bewura politician. What in the middle say? It's not quite say we depend on the abrofo too much until they have sat down and realized all these things. It's they don't think about us. So no one is a stray bomb, no more my pa. They don't think about us. Omunim say akwese akwara ope hwe okoro bu no wan bu no obedi o de man no bu no kura obedi. Eto munim sɛ ɔmo ka yaw kyerɛ kora na ɔkyena ne yɛsantew yɛne ɔmo te hɔ no ɔmo nim sɛ ɔmo ɛtete yɛkeka nsɛm a emu ɛya kyerɛ sɛ ɛde kyerɛ kora no ɔmo nim sɛ adeɛ nkye no na yɛsante hɔ nom ɛsere enti na ɔmo nim sɛ akɔyɛ sɛ akora wo mfɛre biribi onim kata ato sɛ bi woyɛ dɛn ɔbɛyɛ wode ne si fam wode ne ti hwehwɛ wiem yɛ ne dɛn wobo no yɛ ne dɛn ɔbɛyɛ. Enti saa na aborɔfo no tena se na ɔmo ayɛ dɛn asaike yɛ adwene no ho sɛ no, this is what is happening in Africa. Enti no ɔmo nyae sɛ ɔmo ka anim a ɔmo ka anim as if sɛ we are their last born, as if sɛ we Africans no we are their what last born. Ɔmo ba ketekete koraa afei na ɔmo awo no wie a wotu yɛ sɛ bi eburu sɛ bi enya no tu anofo ano no. That is how aborɔfo no fa yɛ o. Enti no motumi ka nsɛm bi ɛya ɛde kyerɛ yɛ. What in the middle of how dare you Israeli ambassador talk to President of Republic of Ghana in such a horrible and in such a disrespectful manner? How on earth enanka we ever happen? Ya ye we kuruma wo wabasa ubeye ambassador ubeye omanbi ensi enemuno. How can you dictate for the president? How can you such it is absolutely bullshit and absolutely nonsense. This cause of alarm and say was a Ghana. any African countries shall develop your mayo tongue, woman shall develop your money in jay. A Kwesi Brunila la Sula Nana de Bia, Mummy African leaders. There is a time for we to sit down and think about our country, think about our continent, and be united as well. Na powerful said a western part no more powerful no adibia so that native na yes resident. This is the time we need to do all these things, and this are we will suffer. Yɛbɛbrɛ yɛnhu hwɛ afei ɛna nkyirima ɛbɛsɔfa paa sɛ yɛnhwɛ ne yɛntoto nneɛma yi a we the next generation we are going to suffer in their hands. Yɛbɛbrɛ ɔmo bɛma yɛn ho akyere, they would lash us, ɔmo bɛtwa yɛn ma nso still a na yɛkɔ kurom yɛkɔ mu kurom ade a yɛkɔpɛ biribi bɛbɛdi. Ɛnɛ kɔbi sɛ obi ɔte UK, kɔbi sɛ obi ɔte America, kɔbi sɛ obi ɔte Canada, kɔbi sɛ obi ɔte Germany. Look at the kind of treatment a nipa no adwuma how osi kɔ adwuma kɔ no yi mistake a wɔnhwɛ yɛ a ho bɛkyerɛw. Woyɛ bibini no woyɛ ade ketewa bi ɔmo bɛgyeli wɔ hɔnom anaasɛ they will what? They will deport you. But bibini tim broni tim bɛkurom ha. China for example be too good be yɛ ɔmo galamsey be yɛ deɛ ɔmo pɛ bi a ɛwɔ kurom ha ɛnso na bibifo ɛte wɔn yɛhwɛ no ɛdi ɛho nti because of lɛlɛsula sika kakra yi from wɔn nti no yɛntumi mmɔ ɔbɔkyɛ nso abusuafo ɛyɛ nsɛm no dɔɔso nsɛm wɔ hɔnom nsɛm hyehyɛ adaka mu de Kwesi Pratt Junior Nyankopɔn nhyira no na ahoɔden a ɛne nokwaredi a wɔtumi agyina de akasa asɛm wɔ ebi abusuafo sɛ also do comment betum na wa like na wa share na bo afoforo nso atumi ni bi ahwɛ hanom ɛyɛ your number one authentic platform Bega TV Nyankopɔn nkɔ so a ɛhyira bi amakro bi papa.